Everyone, my name is Phil Canato. I'm an implementation consultant with Prosymmetry. Today, we're going to look at Tempus Resource Basics. Some basic components within Tempus, really the things that I would want to know when first starting my use with Tempus. Starting with the Tempus homepage, we'll start just navigating across the top toolbar. First, from any screen, I'll be able to click on this Tempus icon, and it'll be able to take me right to this homepage. Note that some of these tiles that are on my screen, depending on your permissions, you may or may not see these. My account is currently set as an administrator role, which is by default going to give me access to every possible tile area out here within Tempus. The first thing we'll point out here is our search tool. So this is a global search. Anything that we want to search in terms of our project by name, resource by name, attributes, or report by name, we're able to do so here. The next is going to be our alert. So when we get into areas of Tempus, we won't spend very much time at all talking about these today. But when you sign up for either subscriptions, certain activities within your projects, within your resource requests, or if you're mentioned in our project messaging feature, which we call Scribe, any activity there that you'll need to direct your attention, you'll receive alerts out here where it's denoted with the red indicator that we just saw. Most of these alerts we're also able to just for your information here, you're able to set those up with our Teams add-in out in the Team store. If you prefer, rather than getting these in-app messages, you can also set those up to come across as Microsoft Team messages. Next, we have our hamburger icon. What this is going to do is represent in a list fashion any of these tiles that I see out in my page. So really think of this as any screen that you're on within Tempus, a shortcut to get to any other screen. Next, on the home screen, we have the question mark indicator. See, when we hover, it says submit feedback, but there's some other things out here that we'll call attention to. So if you want to submit any feedback as a user, things you want to bring to our attention that you think would improve the product, you're able to do so. If there's behaviors that you come across that you think may be a bug, this is just a quick way for you to be able to call those to our attention so that we can get those remedied for you as soon as we're able. If you are building an integration with any of your systems and need access to our API documentation, this would be more of a technical administrative feature. Just know that API documentation can be referenced right here to help build those integrations out. And then finally, here we have the Help Center. So I'd like to have you keep the Help Center in mind because we really do spend a lot of time putting new content out here in terms of quick references, quick how-to videos. Oftentimes, you'll come to us, you'll come to your customer success manager, your support team with questions. But if you don't, if you think it's something that you can come out here and just get a quick answer to, for example, if I would see how to set up my single sign-on, let's just say set up, really any topic out here, you can come and get just our quick documentation to get you that quick answer you're looking for. Another thing out here, Tempus University webinars. So likely where you found this video, we do continually add to our video library out here. So just if you're starting with Tempus or if you're starting to get deeper into your use case, there's certain features that you want to take a deep dive into. We're constantly updating activity out here to really introduce and get you comfortable with all those features. Feature documentation, administrative setting options, Tempus what if scenario planning, Insight Plus reporting, all these things are out there for you. And I want to call your attention to release notes. So anytime that new versions of Tempus come out, if you are listed as one of your Tempus administrators, you'll be invited to our introductory webinar where we introduce the new version of Tempus. We'll go through explaining all those new features. And then also follow that up with a PDF version of the release notes. But these are all going to be stored out here. So all of our release notes what you'll see out here is that webinar that I mentioned, as well as the PDF. So if you're ever considering doing an upgrade and you want those details, you'll be able to quickly get to those out here in the Help Center. So keep in mind, Help Center is there, great point of reference. Out here under your name, this will be your profile setting. So out here is where you can introduce things like new subscriptions. If you want to sign up for different activity here, I've chosen several projects where I want to see all these various activities. Maybe I don't, there's certain things that I don't want to see. Maybe I'm not so interested in seeing my financials. I can go ahead and update these out here. Things related to timesheets, if you are a timesheet user, timesheet approver, resource request, different options out here that you can set up subscriptions to get the alerts, where we talked about the in-app visual alert will appear here under the bell icon. Underneath your profile, this is where you can update things as your password. We support multiple languages, not just English. We're adding to these over time. So if you prefer your language primary setting to be one of these other options, this is where you would change that. And if you are a technical administrator assisting with creating an integration, this is where you're able to create an API token. Also out here, if you happen to be a skill matrix user, some organizations will use Tempus to track skills. Out here is where you can go out and see, populate your own skill set out here. So one more item out here. This may or may not display for you when you initially come in, but you're able to expand and collapse this audit log. What this is going to do is show you globally in this view all the activity that's happening out within your Tempus instance. This may be more useful when we show the versions of these that exist at the project level and at the resource level. But just be aware, you are able to globally view all the activity happening in terms of attribute updates, assignment changes, anything that you're updating in terms of values out in Tempus, that's going to be tracked out here. So we talked about, we have the three main entities within Tempus. We have our projects and our resources, and we tie those together with an assignment. So let's start by taking a look at what do these entities look like within Tempus. I'm going to start and we'll take a look at a commonly used screen, which is going to be project management. So the first time that you come in here, your screen will appear like this. On your left-hand side, you're going to see a listing of all of your projects within Tempus, and not much more your first time that you come in. If you want to search for a certain project by name, you're able to do so here. And I want to show right now the some of these features out here where we can have some filtering in place. We can add in columns, which will really be our attributes. When we talk about attributes in Tempus, these are there are some system attributes that are present, but in general, these are going to be custom attributes that you are adding to your Tempus instance, things that you want to know about your projects, things you want to know about your resource in terms of reporting. Maybe it's how you want them to be categorized. Maybe your projects belong to a certain project owner. Maybe your projects belong to a certain phase. These are things that we can track in terms of attribute. And we can look at grouping and then creating views. First thing that I recommend starting with is adding columns. So as you see out here, when you select this, you're going to see all of your attributes that exist. And again, some of these are going to be custom, some of these are going to be system, but I'm just going to start pulling in some of these that I know out here. We have some data, and so maybe I want to know my project owner, my project manager, my senior leader, all these things associated with the project. I can go ahead and pull these into this view. What you can do also is creating views. What the views are is, as we're out here, I'm pulling in various pieces of information, but maybe I don't want to pull in these pieces of information each time. And maybe I want, several ways that I can organize the data, and I don't want to go through, those repetitive steps. I can create a view. We'll go in and add this view. And let's say I want to introduce, and we'll look at some of these other features now. So let's pull in again our columns. I'm going to pick on senior leader for terms of this. So I would have pulled in my senior leader. what the filtering will do is if my name is Trevor and I want to see only these projects for which they fall under my direct reports and I'm the senior leader associated with that project, I can choose a filter. I'm going to say, let's choose. I want that to belong to myself, Trevor. So here what I've done is I've created a view that's automatically going to look at only my projects. And we can rename this view Trevor's projects. And now wherever I'm working in Tempus, I can leave the screen. I can go into other views, maybe that we have, but I can always come back and see this view in this state where I only see my projects here. The next thing I want to show is grouping. So just a different way to organize the data out here. I'm going to go ahead and remove my filter just by clicking this trash can here. Instead of filtering, we're going to use some grouping. So we'll use the same senior leader. So out here, I see that I have some projects that are associated with some that may not have, just based on how my data is populated, may not have a senior leader associated. But with those that do, those projects that we just filtered in the previous view, now they still appear here, but they are in what is the Tempus grouping. So that's going to be an expandable and collapsible arrangement of the data. And so it's not just filtering, but grouping. So all the three options that we saw being available under senior leader, we have that same behavior out here. Also want to show out in this view, all this work we're doing out here is in the grid view. If we want to see our projects visualized via a Gantt, we have this available as well. So just more of the visualization. These are going to be derived on the period of time that the project exists. I can get that visualization out here as well. But most of the work I tend to see done in the grid view. So let's go in and see what these records look like. And these are going to be our project records. So I'm just going to go ahead and we'll open vendor phase one. The first thing that I'm going to see here is my attribute page. So we talked about attributes. A lot of these are going to be things that you want to know about your project in terms of anything reporting. Or think about how we were in the previous screen and we wanted to do our groupings, we wanted to do our filterings, anything about the project that we want to use to report or organize. That's what we mean when we talk about attributes in Tempus. The first screen that we typically will see is the attributes page. You can, in your settings, set it to default to this allocations tab. This allocation tab is one of the two areas where we can make assignments in Tempus. We mentioned there are two areas. This is the first one. So by coming into the screen, what I'm going to see out here are all of my resources who are assigned. In this case, I'm looking at FTE. We can also look at this in terms of time, which is going to be hours, FTE percents. We can look at cost as well. We won't get too much into the cost here. And this is in particular going to be your labor cost, which is going to be what you can set in Tempus as a resources default rate. And this will be a representation of using that rate times the number of hours that they're assigned to the project. It's going to calculate that out into a cost for us. So just be aware that this lives here. There's ways to do it. We won't spend a lot of time on it today. And then we can have, similar to how we had the project, we can see a Gantt visualization of the period of time for which these assignments exist. So I'm going to go back into FTE. I want to point out here, so right now I'm viewing the monthly level, but there are different time granularities offered in Tempus. We do have a lot of customers that will do their planning on a weekly basis, even daily basis. All these time granularities are available out here. We've recently added the annual level. So we'll move back to month for purposes of today. Similarly to how we looked at the list view when we first went into project management, we're able to pull attributes into the screen. So In terms of anything that is attribute of a resource, I will see those noted here with this person icon. And anything that's a project attribute, I'll see it noted here as this blue folder type icon. And then we won't talk too much today, but we also have assignment level attributes. If there's things that we want to know about the particular assignment, we have the ability to track that as well. But just for purposes of today, I'm going to go ahead and pull in my senior leader here. And what that does is anything that we want to see in terms of information we're tracking in Tempus about the project, about the resource assigned to the project, these are available out here as well. But just think of it as a way to get information conveniently in one place for you to view while you're going through making your assignments. Won't spend too much time on this either, but these assignments here, we see they're done at the project level. Tempus also allows you to plan at the task level, which I think of those as like a sub project. So if you want to plan forecasts based on something that's a bit more detailed, maybe it's a phase of a project, maybe there really are certain tasks that you do track within a project, you can get into that level of detail by using task as well. So for today, just be aware that we're going to be planning all the generic tasks. We won't get into this too much either, but there are different data sets within Tempus. Right now, we're looking at our planned allocation. Now, in your use case, it's likely that maybe you're only going to use one or two of these data sets, but be aware that there are 4 available. Right now, we're looking at our planned allocation. This is what's going to be considered the primary data set in Tempus. So think of this is really what we're planning or forecasting our resources to be working on a project. What we see as actual is if we want to bring into Tempus timesheet entries, so the actual time that our resources are working on projects, that's a lot of times our customers want to compare what have we planned to work on the project and then see what has actually been worked against the project. So common use case is that type of comparison reporting. And then we have our demand data set. Common use case for this can be maybe we want an initial resource plan to be tracked as a baseline. Several other common use cases of it, but just be aware that the demand can also be split. The demand data can be split between planned and actual, and this is how we navigate between those. But in general, we'll be working in our planned actual. Another note, if you are going to be working in Tempus timesheets, when your timesheet users submit their time and that time is then approved, that data, those assignments will then feed into your allocation actual data set. So by checking out the project, this becomes editable out here. So this is where you can actually make assignments, you can edit assignments. So if I modify this out here for choice here, because we have it at the plan level or the task level, I'll modify within the task. Now, if I want to make updates out here, I can copy, paste, cut and drag. This works very similarly to Excel. If I want to move my assignments between resource, out here I have a resource replace. We'll look at that here in a minute. But I can also delete the assignment from this area. I can also populate to look at any certain required or assignment project attributes that I want my resource to view. You can configure that in your settings so that you can view those as well. But we'll go to resource replace right here. And we won't spend too much time on these either, with this being a very high level introduction, but this is a pretty cool area of Tempus that allows us to replace certain resources with other resources. We can segregate our resources out. For example, if I want to see only my resources that belong to a department, I know that Joyce belongs to perhaps my accounting and finance department, and I want to replace her with only resources that are part of that. I can see it doesn't look like I have a lot of options in terms of my net availability down here, but just for purposes of showing the functionality, let's say I want to replace Joyce with Bruce, redistribute, and hit replace. and I'm able to move allocations just like that. So these can be edited out here. These can go through resource replace. I'll go ahead and release this, not really save any of the changes that we've done. Another important thing to note is within this allocations tab, this is where you will list your project start and end date. So if I check this out, these dates will become editable. These dates are important within Tempus because they will define the period of time for which you can assign a resource to a project. So out here, just want to point out a couple of things. We mentioned subscriptions when we were looking at the homepage navigation. If we are viewing this, we want to subscribe to this project overall, we can do so here via the in-app notification. If we have Teams set up, we can do that as well. So just a quick way to add a project to your existing subscriptions. If you are already subscribed to a project, you'll see that visually indicated. This will turn into like a living blue sort of feature, just indicating that the subscription's already there. And this is where you'll access Scribe. So this is going to be our messaging feature within Tempus. So if I want to create alerts for other users, say, hey, Abigail, please review. So when I submit this to Abigail, she will get an alert that she needs to come out and view this. If there are things that you want to communicate, such as documenting requests for changes and assignments, things like that, this is a great way to do that as well. Go ahead and subscribe here. We're not going to spend any time on going into any of the other areas of our project drop-down list here, but I'll explain what they are. As you get sort of deeper into your use of Tempus, these will be more sort of areas that you can refine and go into a little bit more detail. But the audit log, this will show me all of the activity that's occurring within the project, specific to the project. So any changes to an attribute value, say I change my senior leader, it's no longer going to be Trevor. It's going to move on to one of the other senior leaders. That activity will be tracked out here. Build team is a feature that is most commonly used by our customers that utilize Tempus timesheets. This will allow the administrators to configure which users are able to add certain projects to their timesheets. It also can be a useful tool because it'll limit which resources may be available for a project. So if you have only certain resources that you want to be available for a certain project, this build team feature will allow you to do that too. File management allows you to store different files for the project. So any documentation, maybe you have change requests, change orders, documentation that's associated with your projects, and you want a centralized place to store it and everybody knows where to go to access those. We do offer a file repository feature here, and that's file management. Tempus financials. So this is going to be, we can refer to these as external expenses or non-labor costs, but you do have the ability, and there'll be another video that specifically focuses on Tempus financial management, but you are able to track those within Tempus as well. And those do feed into our scenario planning Tempus What If tool. Milestones, if there is a point in time that you want to define as a milestone, those are available in Tempus as well. Those will appear visually. For example, here I have two milestones here. I didn't give them names, but those are appearing out here. So your milestones will be visually represented. If you look in the Gantt view, you'll see those there as well. Tempus sheets. So this is the ability to attach an Excel-like sheet out to your projects. We also have this at the resource level as well. So maybe there's some data that you want to keep that might not, in terms of data structure, fit inside Tempus, but again, a centralized area where you can keep, for example, maybe a log of risks associated with the project, anything you want to track as a spreadsheet attached, you're able to do so via sheets. Sheets can also be templated, and once you create a templated sheet, and again, this will be in another section, those can feed into your what if. Into your Insight Plus reporting if you happen to be using that, as well as reporting and report management. Snapshots, when you take a snapshot of a project, what you're doing is you're capturing at any point in time the existing project attribute values as well as the assignments at that point in time. So any of your allocations or assignments, you want to create a snapshot, come back to any point in time. You're able to do that. Also have the feature, and this is a bit too detailed for this particular video, but you have the ability for, based on permission, to restore a project back to the time that the snapshot was taken. So kind of cool feature there that if you have the ability to restore your project at how it existed as of any point in time that a snapshot was taken. So another couple of things that we'll point out here. We'll go back to the attributes page, and these are going to exist. These features out here are going to exist in the project management view as well. But the ability to clone a project, the ability to snapshot, the ability to shift. So if we want to move our project dates forward, project dates back, and have all the existing allocations follow suit along for the ride, we're going to do that here. We won't talk about workflows, but you're able to work with those as well as if we want to use a project to create as a template based on permissions, we do have the ability to bring in templated data into our projects. So one last thing to point out in projects is the views that we just saw, the options that we just saw, those are going to be available out here in this list view as well. One thing that I do want to show here is when we are pulling in our columns out here, many of these values are going to be editable directly in this view. So I can do so just by, if I want to change this from Trevor to Cameron, I'm able to do so, and then see that now leaves our view based on grouping. If I want to update multiple, I can go, if it's going to update whatever projects I have selected. So if I hold down the shift button here, it's going to select all in between my selections, and I can go ahead and update them all at one time by hitting save. If I want to hit control and add in others that are outside of that progression, I'm able to do so. And if I were to update this as well, all that I have selected will update at the same time. So pretty easy to update your data in Tempus directly within this project management view. So the next entity that we'll talk about are resources. So I'll go ahead and go into our resource management. We're going to see that this has that very same look and feel that we saw within project management. So all the same functionalities, filtering, adding in columns. And here, maybe I want to see the department that my resources belong to. Anything that you're tracking about your resources can be put into this view. We have the same grouping and the ability to select and create different views. Point out the net availability screen here. So if you want to quickly get a picture of net availability that your resources have, and you can see out here, I do have a grouping in place. I'll go ahead and remove that. Down here, if I want to get a view of all of my resources and what their availability may be for this point of time, pretty cool that I could just come in here and get that quick picture. If I wanted to filter this to see availability for a certain project, easy to do as well. We can go and say, let's see who's available in my accounting department, accounting and finance. Able to do so just like that. So we'll go back into the grid view. And again, the grid view is going to be where you'll do a lot of your work, sort of the more popular screen. Let's take a look at what these resource records look like. So we'll go ahead and open up a resource record. It's going to take me to my attributes and identity page. So out here is where, and you're going to see this based on permission. And one thing I want to mention about this attribute page is that your administrator can completely configure this any way that you want to. So if there are certain attributes that you want to appear or certain you don't, you can create these certain sections. Out here we show require, optional, logistics. These are all customizable in terms of what do you want to call them? How many are there? What attributes do you want to appear within them? All customizable out for your administrator, who we won't talk about today, but just for awareness. A couple features here: clone your resource record, global replace. This will be the scenario where, as of a certain date, so Nicola, in this example, I know that she's terminating today. Today's date is June 17th, 2024, and I want to replace her with Allison. I can go ahead and copy all, and I can choose from the 4 data sets what I want to move. If I were to hit save here, it will move all of Nicola's assignments onto Allison. Similar to how we use the resource replace out in the project management single project screen. However, this would do so for all assignments and not just be pertinent to that specific project. So here we'll go over to capacity, and let's explain how this works. So when I go into a resource, I see that this is going to be divided into 2 different sections. So we have at the top, it's going to be our capacity section. And then at the bottom, we have our cross allocation projects, which will get us down to our net availability. So out here, we have the ability, if we have set up within Tempus, things where we know that not all of our resources capacity, and in this case, we're looking at our base capacity up to the top, and then it's coming down to a net capacity at the bottom. If we know that there are certain days that we know the resource is not going to have capacity, such as maybe we've set up a holiday calendar out of Tempus. Maybe this will make more sense if we look at this the daily or weekly level, but we know that there are going to be certain days, maybe a little hard to find at the daily level, so we can go down to the weekly level. There are going to be certain days that we know that are not going to be available. Out here, for example, our holidays, we don't want to show that our resources are going to be in the office, and we want that reflected in our planning, so we can offset those holidays via calendar right out in the screen. If there are things that we have set up as an admin time out here, I have just non-project time, operational work, PTO. Let's say for PTO, say for a certain week, we'll do this in terms of time out here. So my resource-based capacity is 36 hours, but I know that Nicola is going to be out. Nicola's going to be out of the office on vacation for 36 hours this week. So we'll need to edit this in our dominant unit, which is FTE. So we know that she's going to be out of the office during this week for 1 FTE. I can go ahead and edit that right out here and hit save. Now when we look at this at our monthly level, I can see that out of office is now going to be reflected in terms of her availability. So I believe we entered that out here in April. So that's our 0.5 holiday reflected out here. Here we can see the PTO that we've entered. So we see her net availability out here being deducted. So just a couple ways you can offset your capacity. There is a strong case for when we get into non-project time, such as maybe admin time, reflecting those as a project. We won't get into that detail today, but I will say there are multiple ways that you can offset your resource capacity in order to get it to that accurate level that you want represented in your planning and forecasting. What we see at the bottom part is going to be our cross-project allocation. So what that's going to do is these don't automatically line up. So let me modify this so we get these in a straight line here. For August 2023, I see that I have my net or base capacity starting with 0.1. I know we have 0.17 FTE that's accounted for in PTO. So I'm starting with my 0.83 when I get into my calculation below. But what I see here is my entire allocation for Nicola across each project. So I see 0.4, 0.33, a 0.73 FTE, and that's subtracted from my 0.83E net capacity here. It's giving me a net availability down at the bottom. So again, that's the 0.83 minus the 0.73, and I see a net availability. She still has a 0.1 FTE in net availability for the month of August. These can all be modified in terms of time granularity. How do you want to see these? The bottom as well, we can look at our assignments in terms of time, cost, FTE percent, or FTE. And then finally, I want to call out the capacity start date, capacity end dates. So these are important to keep in mind in terms of, especially when you're doing any reporting and you want an account of headcount. Resources that have capacity during this period of time are going to appear in your headcount, and this will determine the time that your resource is available to be assigned for project. We'll say there are areas that will still allow you to assign over and above existing capacity. The newer version of Tempus now has the ability to call that out to you when you're allocating above capacity. A couple other features out here. So we have, similar to how we had in projects, we have our audit log. This is going to be at the resource level. So any changes made to this resource, maybe she previously worked in our marketing department, and then Nicole now works in our accounting and finance. We'll see that activity, any updates made to her resource record here, as well as any changes to any assignments. File management, so maybe a good use case for attaching a file to a resource record. Maybe we want to attach a resume, something like that. Anything about the resource in terms of an external file, we can save that out here as well. We talked about sheets and Excel-like worksheet that we can attach to a project. That's available at the resource level as well. And then this will be a list to a skill matrix. If you are an organization that's tracking skills in Tempus and you have the permission set accordingly, you will be able to review that resource's skills through this view. So now we've looked at project management, resource management at a very high level. Right now, we're going to look at our bulk project allocation flat grid. This is a very popular screen in Tempus. The reason being that we can view existing assignments and make new assignments in bulk. So want to point out the first time you come in here, and I will make another comment too, with these screens in Tempus, in general, it will remember what you had on your screen the last time you were there, and it will sort of go back to that view and present that to you the next time you go into a screen. So there's a lot of ways that Tempus will remember you and what you're doing. The first time you come in, you're going to need to enter dates out here. This is going to be the window of time in which we want to view assignments. It's going to have nothing to do with the project starter end date, nothing to do with the resource capacity starter end date. As a matter of fact, out here, when we see a period of time for which a project ends, for which a resource has capacity has ended, we'll see those as being grayed out in the visualization. I'm just going to start and enter some dates here. Say I want to see for assignments for 2024 and 2025. So we have the 4 data sets that we looked at before. I'm going to work in planned allocation. We have 3 modes out here. The first is going to be our default mode. The default mode is generally going to be used when we want to make new assignments. The reason for that is because we can pair any resource to any project. So if I know I want to assign Allison to a certain project out here, I can go ahead and search her. In this case, the project I selected has multiple tasks. I see the green visualization out here that there is some net availability. If I want to make an assignment, say point to FTE, just at the generic level for Allison for this 4-month period, I can go ahead and do so. And these will be saved right out here in the gray. Other options out here, let's look at options first. So the ability to turn on and turn off the heat maps. The most common that we'll use out here is the resource. So just the net availability of our resource to be displayed out here in the grid. But other options as well. If we want to hide our tasks, we'll be able to do as well. We can add a total row. Like I have selected there, but we can show total rows. We can show totals of our demand planning resources. We won't talk about those today, but our named resources, we can add those as well. It's not like we need it there. Capacity out of bounds indicator. So this is when we talk about if your resource capacity ends and you are going through and making an assignment during a time that there's no capacity, this will call that out to you as well as if we want to show our selection calculations, it's going to be put out here. And as we hover over our columns out here, it'll show you it's calculating. But just some options out here that you can play with while you're in the tool. We'll give it a minute to load here. So it's taking a moment to load. But other features that I want to point out while we're here is similar to when we were working out in the project, the single project allocation screen. We are able to pull in any of our assignment attributes, any of our resource attributes, any of our project attributes. We'll go ahead and refresh here. I don't think just like what I just did. Here, okay. So anything that I want to pull in terms of assignments, maybe I have a program number. You'll be able to see my resources department. So again, just information that is going to help us make our decisions when doing assignments out in the screen. Able to do that as well. Similar to how we had in the other screens, the ability to create views, the ability to grouping. Grouping is, we'll look at this when we get into the project and resource level, but grouping is very useful out in the flat grid. We're going to go into our next view. Now let's look at our resource view. So what the resource view is going to do is as we start selecting our resources here, it's going to cross-reference any projects where there's an existing assignment for those resources and pull those into our view here. As I start selecting more, you see the projects increase out here. So this is going to be a great way to see existing assignments. Now, when we're in the resource view, I'm going to show some functionality out here. I have the ability to do filtering out here. So maybe I want to see, maybe I want to have a view where I want to see only resources that belong to a certain department. So let's say our production department. These come out here. I can select those all at once by clicking those here. And the cool thing here is if I'm looking at this from the perspective of being a resource manager, and maybe I'm responsible for all the resources in the production department, and I want a quick way to see what each of them have on their plate, I can introduce grouping out here. So in particular, I'm going to do a grouping by my resource name. And as I put it here, let's say, let's see how this is working. Source 3. Yeah, so, and my apologies for some testing I had out there, an extra resource name attribute that was not our system attribute. But when we introduce the grouping by name, the cool thing here is that I get a full picture of everyone in my production department. So as I start expanding and collapsing these, the expansion gives me a full view of what these resources are working on. In the options, I can add in here either my percent unallocated, or I can even show my net availability. And this is enabled here. And I really like this because as we look at Irene, we can see and we're looking at this on a weekly basis. I can see on a weekly basis that she tends to be over allocated here by a significant amount. And I'm able to see this clearly. She's allocated 170% of an FTE, which means in terms of FTE, she has a negative 0.7 allocation. And that's just by adding up the things she's working on. I can see this for all of my resources. So Cameron happens to have no assignments here. So I see that he's 100%. He has a net availability of 1 FTE. He has no allocations, but just a cool way to go in and quickly get that view of what everybody's working on. When we look at the project level, I'm going to deselect our resources here. When I look at the project level, and let's look at this from a lens of our project manager. So just sort of the flip side of how our resource mode works. The project mode, as I start selecting projects, over on the left-hand side here, I'm seeing my resources that are assigned pull in. So in this case, I can introduce maybe some filtering here where I say I want my projects, and I know I have phase out here. Maybe I want my current phase to belong to phase one. So, oops, show me all of my phase one projects. Maybe, yeah, so from the project management perspective, maybe I am the individual who's responsible for all phase one projects. I can introduce that grouping. So instead of resource name, maybe let's group on project name. So here we have that same functionality from the project perspective. So if I want to see everybody who's working on Barracuda Phase 9, I'm able to, just with this arrangement, I'm able to see that whole picture out here as well. I see the whole allocation. I see all my resources at the assignment level out here. And these are all, just as I start expanding these, I get the full project of what's happening, or the full picture of what's happening in my project. So a lot of cool things that we can do out here in the flat grid. So we've taken a look at very high level projects and resources out in Tempus and the assignments within the flat grid. Just a couple things that I'll point out here in the last minute or so. Admin settings out here. This is where a lot of things live in terms of controlling. A lot of your administrators will work for this, but just quickly, if setting up different roles, which users can see, which features of Tempus, setting up, what are your attributes, what type of attributes are they? Data sync, this allows your administrators to do imports from an Excel file into Tempus, making your initial data setup easy. If you're looking at skills, general settings, a lot of things that as you get into your use case of Tempus, this is where a lot of those sort of advanced or more detailed features will live. Lastly, today, I just want to show quickly report management. Report management can be useful in terms of getting data out of Tempus in a way that's usable. And a good example of this is, let's say I'm going to create a pivot grid report out here. And let's say that I want to see my net availability of my resources. So I can pull in things out in Tempus, let me spell that correctly, just into a quick view out here. So let's say I want to see what are my resources working on. So let me pull in my resource name. Let's say I want to see this information at a monthly level. So I can pull in my month and my year. And then I can go into measures. Let's say out here I want to see my resource capacity. Let me pull in my resource base capacity as an FTE. And then I want to see what my resources are working on, just so I get a picture side to side. What are they available to work? What are they planned to work? So let's get our planned allocation in terms of FTE, and I can put those in as well. And here, so then I see this displayed, and this can be exported into Excel file, a flat file, same options with CSV, or I can send these out as a PDF. But as I go through here, I can see just those details. It's like my data really starts to fill in out here in February, this year, the year, then the month. So we'll group on year. So as I expand 2024, I can see my resources, their capacity, and then what they're working on. If I want to even go a step further and see, what is their net availability, which would be subtracting out the allocation from their capacity, I can create calculated measures out here. So let's create one. So we have a net availability calculated, but we'll go ahead and show how we can quickly create those. We'll call this one net availability. Again, call it net avail, and from here, we can just add in those dimensions that we're going to use in the calculation. So in this case, it'll be pretty straightforward. We'll say, we'll bring in our resource-based capacity minus those planned allocations in terms of FTEs. So let's try those. That. So I can go ahead and save this. And so now this exists under our calculated measures, and I can pull that in as its own column out here. So now I'm seeing that actual calculation being done out here. Filtering, it's easy to implement out here. So if we want to take a resource dimension, let me go into our custom resource fields and we'll pick on department. So maybe here I only want to see, we'll choose values. I only want to see resources that belong to my accounting and finance. I can hit apply. And here I'm just seeing those specific resources isolated in this report. So I use the reports as just a quick way to get information out of Tempus in a way that it's going to be usable to me. So this is our high-level overview of Tempus that shows us the Tempus resource basics. Thanks for watching. Please visit our Help Center for additional information and content.